whether, no matter what your function is, whether it's at work or at home, you're just not doing a very good job. And so it's not a pretty picture. I think all of us really like to bring forth the best inside of ourselves. And with burnout, there's nothing left to give. There's nothing there. It's like we've lost who we are. We become empty of ourselves. We become truly unable to relate to other people or even relate to beauty. And that's why it often gets mistaken for depression, because those of your listeners who are depressed may say, but wait, I just got pills for that. Well, here's the difference. You take a burned out person and you say, go rest for a few days. And guess what? They perk up again. Somebody who's truly clinically depressed will not perk up so easily. But over time, here's what happens. It gets harder for the burned out person to perk up. And I'll go through a little bit of the 12 stages for you, and then we'll have a discussion. We're just going to lay the groundwork here. All the way back in 1974, there was this psychologist, Herbert Freudenberger, and he was studying burned out people in corporate settings because, if your personnel are burned out, the quality of work in your corporation goes way down. So corporations were very interested in how to keep people, working at the top of their game. So Freudenberger interviewed, thousands of people over the years, and he, along with another colleague, Gail North, said, well, burnout doesn't come full-blown. What happens is that it happens in stages, and if you understand the stages, you can catch it, you can nip it in the bud before it gets to its worst stage, which in my parents' days they would have called a complete nervous breakdown. So I'll go through some of the stages with you, and like anything, some people go through all of the stages, some go through none of the stages, some of the stages happen at the same time. There's variation, but this is the backbone of what it looks like. Okay. So it starts simply with overwork, and I have to tell you that this week I've definitely been in that state myself. I'm constantly making adjustments because always I could be overworking. So it's not uncommon. I am taking off, by the way, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because I see burnout sneaking up on me right now, Lisa. So
me too, Joan. I'm taking those 3 days off myself.
Yeah, I mean that's what. And if you don't do that, then you're going to go down. You're going to go down the tubes. So the next step down the tubes, after working too hard, is you realize you're working so hard that you're ignoring your own needs. And that's when you realize, well, I was supposed to have my teeth cleaned 3 months ago. I never made the appointment. Or, gee, I've been, really meaning to go in and get my contact lenses checked, and now I'm on my last pair, but I didn't make time for myself. Or I've had that twinge in my back again, and I really know that I need to be taking some Pilates. I need to be taking some yoga. I need to be strengthening my core and my back muscles, but who has time for doing that? Because everybody else's needs have taken precedence over your own. So that's another stage of burnout. Now you're really on the slippery slope because you're ignoring yourself. I'm not going to go through every stage, but I'll give you some representational ones on the way down. The next one would be, that you really start to get a lot of stress-related symptoms because while burnout is not caused by stress, which you made that point right in the beginning, it itself is stressful, definitely stressful. Burnout is caused, turns into a total lack of motivation that's really caused by having poor boundaries and letting the world overwhelm you and not being resilient enough to figure out what to do for yourself in this difficult situation. But anyhow, so, you start to have stress-related symptoms. You start to feel lousy. And what we know, what I've known, from my clinical experience and experience as a stress researcher through the years, is that somewhere, depending on whose data you look at, but somewhere between 70 and 90% of the reasons why people visit their family doctor are for stress-related disorders. I thought I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I saw so many doctors, acupuncturists, you name it, because I was so completely exhausted. My muscles ached. Some days I could, the pain was so awful. I was burned out. That's what that was a symptom of in the end. I even had a physician who said, well, you're somatizing. It must be because you're depressed. And I spent 2 weeks on an antidepressant, which made me so restless and angry. The side effects were so terrible that I just stopped taking it, which was fine because I didn't need it. And this is one of the problems, that your average family doctor doesn't know anything about burnout. In fact, your average psychologist knows nothing about burnout. And so people keep mistaking it for depression, but they're different. So after you start developing symptoms, other kinds of things start to go on, and that is the development of cynicism. Why bother? Why do this? Why bother? Life sucks. Things are not very good. I don't like that person. And really negativity starts to surface, and that's when you lose empathy. You can see what that scale of compassion fatigue has to do with. You lose empathy for the people around you. And, of course, you've long ago lost any empathy for yourself. You haven't been taking care of yourself. So after that point, what starts to happen is you lose your values. And, if your values have been, I'm a person who puts my family first, well, forget it. That flew out of the window long ago with the overwork. And if you start to say, what I really value every day is calling my elderly mother, and then you realize I haven't called her, in a week, and this is starting to become a pattern. We can all think of lots of values that may disappear at times like these. And what happens at the very, very bottom is we really lose our motivation. We don't care anymore. Can't get the work done. You find yourself sitting like as a writer. I would find myself sitting in front of the computer, and I'd write the same sentence. I'd write and rewrite it all day long and never get anything done. Or I know of a cardiac surgeon who, he was ready to make an incision, and he couldn't remember where to make it. It's like your brain is literally fried. And oftentimes there's a tremendous health crisis at this point as well.
Right.
So burnout, when we walk around and we say, oh, I'm fried, we ought to know that it's not really benign. It's misery loves company, all right, that we need to have our best, most creative selves on board if we're going to cooperate in remaking this world in this time of tremendous change and shift.
Right. And it's so important when we have support that can also come in and, help us as we're moving through these shifts, because oftentimes those who suffer from burnout rarely ask for help or seek help, and that's also kind of contributes to the burnout effect. They're used to doing everything, and so therefore they do it. And have you found that that's a contributing factor? That kind of personality trait?
I think part of the problem is people don't know what's wrong with them, and they don't know where to look for help. And, there's a lot of places to look for help, everything from, a therapist to somebody to come and help you organize your life and your clutter, streamline your use of time, clarify your priorities. And I thought there's a lot of books on that, a lot of books on how to do that. But burnout is deeper than changing your to-do list around. and learning how to manage your time. It really has to do most deeply with the relationship you have with yourself and with life. And that's why when I wrote Fried, it has a lot of reflection exercises, writing exercises where you really sit and you say to yourself, wow, what's going on? What makes me tick? Why is this happening? How interesting my responses to things. I wonder where they come from. And what you really need to do when you're burned out, somebody who's really burned out, no matter what else it costs you, you've got to step out of the fray for a while and take some time off. And I think we all know people who've said, I'm fried. I got to do that. I'm taking a month off. Or I'm taking a week off. And for some of us, we say, what? I could never get a month off. But, most of us could get a week off. And it's not a week that you schedule with doing a million things. It needs to be a week where you can get away, where you can rest, where you can let some of the stress out of the system so that you can start to see straight once again. And that's part of what Fried is for, the book, is to help people do that. But
and it also helps making personal boundaries for yourself, right? It's like, putting up right. Because if the boundaries come in, I find it a lot with clients who have been mothers and nurturers in the family so much, and they've lost their identity. They've lost their drive, their passions. And that really contributes, and they feel a sense of guilt that they really don't have this real unconditional peace for the family right now. Right now they're just pissing them off. And so, there's that goes on with it. And I really, I always want to encourage women that, yes, family's always important. I have 4 kids, always important. However, try not to lose sight of your passions, because that really is a quick burnout.
Yeah, because that's what happens. You start to feel resentful of the very people, that you love the most. And when that starts to happen, I need a mid-course correction here. And that's what burnout really is. It tells you, hey, you're lost in the dark woods here, and you're going down the wrong path. You need to step out and get above it and take a look. Where's the right path? Where have I lost my passion? How can I get my passion back? And it's critically important. And,
it's so important.
Boundaries are hard for women. It's hard to say no to somebody when that person, you could really help them if you did something. And I think in the end, the only way to learn how to say no in an appropriate way when someone asks you something that you'd really like to do is to know, what are you saying yes to for yourself? And can you do that? So a really simple example for me is this. One of my big yeses, I live up in the mountains, and I moved here because it's beautiful and I like nature. I like to be outdoors. One of my big yeses is to get outside every day and hike in the mountains. And here, there's no such thing as taking a walk. And walking out the door is a hike wherever you're going and take my dogs. And so
wonderful.
If somebody says to me, can you do this for me or that for me, or read and review this book, or give me guidance on this, or if there's too many, radio interviews even, what will happen to me is I can't get outside. And in saying yes to someone else, I've said no to something that's incredibly important to my health and to my joy in life.
Right,
so
and you come first,
you come first. If you don't, it's such a hackneyed thing. I can't stand this metaphor, but I'll use it anyhow because everybody knows it. It's the old put on your own oxygen mask first in the airplane before helping the person next to you.
Exactly.
Because if you fainted, you're useless. So that's a very important thing, and women really need to understand
Oh yeah, and we're raised with this piece of